Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I am super excited to invite you all to another amazing Tiger Talks presentation. This one's entitled Tiger Talks Charting Your Path, Maximizing Student Services at Morehouse College. So I am your host or MC for tonight. I am Michael Gum, Director of Admissions of Morehouse College, proud member of the class of 2010. Super excited to be in front of you all tonight as we engage in such an amazing conversation. So get your pen, get your paper ready. We have someone who's in store for you to give you some of the best expectations and the knowledge and the competencies to really understand what we have going on at Morehouse College. No other than our presenter for tonight, Brock Myers, and that's Dr. Myers, who is the proud member of the class of 1999. He's our Associate Vice President of Student Services and Dean of Students. So at this time, before I turn it all the way over to him, I definitely want him to just greet you all and just give you some pieces of who he is at the college.
Sure. Thank you, Director Gum. Like you said, my name is Brock Myers. I'm excited to be here tonight to share a little bit about what we do in student services here at the on our campus. I'm going to get into a little bit more about me a little later, but really excited to share all that's going on here at the college. Thanks, Mike.
Absolutely. So if you notice those apostrophes behind our name, that lets you know that we're actually graduates of Morehouse College. We are alumnus of the university. So to kick this off, the topics covered in this session: student support services, right? We're going to talk about what does it mean to be a student and what is out there for you to support you while you go through Morehouse College. Topics covered tonight are all inclusive of this idea of what does it mean to be a Morehouse man, right? Which we got to backtrack and first give you the understanding of what this place is. Morehouse is an amazing institution that has been around for over 150 years with this mission to develop men with disciplined minds who would lead lives of leadership and service. This ideology of just producing some of the best, some of the most qualified individuals across the nation to do that one thing, which is to define yourself so that you can still and find some ways to redefine the world. Graduating over 400 plus African-American men each year, there is no other institution that has the sort of respect, the leadership, and the poise of a Morehouse College. And so you know of some greats like, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Sam Jackson, Spike Lee, the late, great Julian Bond, and the list goes on, right? As we think of other alums that have done amazing things, whether you are interested in engineering or interested in philosophy or history or sociology, psychology, whether you want to go into business, Morehouse is a place for you. And so as you think about tonight as an admitted student, as a student that might be prospectively looking, or a counselor who's engaged with us tonight, to understand that we can't do anything outside of producing our next greatest king, which hopefully you're coming in to being able to be inspired to become. So as we think about Morehouse and as we turn this over, have that in mind. But tonight, you need to be taking down notes as we get into the aspect of student services.
Thank you, Director Gum. I really appreciate that as an introduction. I thought that I wanted to stop here because I'm sure that if you've attended a Tiger Talk, if you've heard about Morehouse or read about Morehouse, you're familiar with, at least remotely familiar with, the history and understand that when we were founded and understand that we are the only institution of its kind being a historically Black college for men. But the most important part of this slide is our mission, right? And you'll see a little further along in the presentation how that mission of developing men who lead lives of leadership and service aligns with that of the work that we do in student services. But I really wanted to pause here because I think that Director Gums really shows this slide as a seed to why are we choosing Morehouse, right? And I thought that I saw it as a great opportunity to share why I chose Morehouse, right? I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, is where I was born. Grew up in Long Island, New York. I'm a first generation college student, meaning I'm the first person in my family to attend college. I'm a first generation American, meaning I'm the first person in my family to be born in this country. And so while education was always stressed in my household, um, where I would go to school following high school was not something that my parents could really assist me with. When I spoke to an admissions recruiter 100 years ago, um, he let me know that Morehouse was the place for me because it's the only place in the world where I can go and develop as a man, as a Black man who is trying to understand what it meant to be that without the noise of trying to explain my existence or my presence to the outside world who may not look or think like me. So it was an opportunity to have my intellectual tools sharpened as I left out into the world. And so what is it that we do at Student Services? Well, what I want you to focus on here is this idea of creating a premier living and learning experience. And we'll talk a little bit about what that is um, uh, later on in the presentation. But what we really do is we strive to ignite, innovate, and inspire all of our students who are here on our campus as they transition from who they are to who they were divinely created to be, right? And so you will find your dreams and your passions here at the college and at Student Services. This is what we attempt to support you in building and developing. And so you remember I said I wanted to kind of talk about this living and learning experience. So if there are any parents on the call, you may think that when your sons come to us, they're going to spend the bulk of their time in class and studying. I'm here to tell you on today that that is a lie in my Maury Povich voice. On average, what we see, and this is reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is that college students typically only spend about 14% of their day in class or doing academic work on average. And so what are they doing during those other periods of time? And so we see that a lot of students may work about 10% of the day. A lot of students are going to do kind of other activities about 10% of the day, and kind of, you know, the activities of eating and, you know, grooming and taking care of yourself. That's about, you know, 13% of the day. But they're going to spend the bulk of their day doing two things: sleeping and hanging out, right? Um, uh, Leisure time typically is about 17% of the day, and sleeping typically about 36% of the day. Um, so that's how they're spending their time. So if you see you're coming to college to learn, to earn a degree, to prepare for your future, but that those learning developmental opportunities just don't happen in the classroom. And that's where student services comes in. So as you see, they spend this very small pie doing academic things, but the rest of the day, they pretty much spend with the student services team. And that team is led by Mr. Kevin Booker, a member of the Morehouse College class of 1990. He's a tremendous leader, a tremendous advocate for students, and a large part of why our area um, is very passionate about working so closely with our students in the way we do. So Let's meet the rest of the student services team. So we're going to start with safety. This is Chief Charles Prescott, a member of the class of '07, and he is our Chief of Police and Associate Vice President of Campus Safety. And campus safety is primarily tasked with exactly what that sounds like: deterring crime from around campus, regulating the access, who comes on and who has to leave campus, emergency responses, and managing the safety of special events like homecoming, Spring Fest, and various activities of that nature. Dr. Naji Capri Lane, she serves as our Director of Residence Life and Education. Our housing program is incredibly robust. We do not refer to our housing units as dorms or dormitories because those buildings are typically reserved for sleeping. So much more happens in our residence houses. There are very high quality, there very high quality programming that happens relative to the development, the overall development of a student, as well as opportunities to build and learn and study, not only by yourselves, but with the other residents in your house. The residence houses are, for the most part, broken up into academic areas. So there's a house that will typically house the humanities. There's a house that will typically house STEM students or business students, so that the people who are around you are likely going to be in similar classes, and so you could build and learn from each other. This idea of iron sharpening iron is critical to your learning and development, and that's how we do it here at the college. Next, we have Dean Kevin Chapman, member of the class of '06, and he leads our student life area. And student life on our campus is also pretty robust. And so we obviously have a number of key organizations that Dean Chapman operates, primarily the Student Government Association. So the SGA is primarily responsible for being a liaison between the student body and the administration. Excuse me. And Dean Chapman leads that, but also with student activities. So we have an organization called the Campus Alliance for Student Activities that supports the planning of a lot of the social events that happen on campus, inclusive of homecoming. Then we have almost 70 registered student organizations on our campus. Now, these are student-created, student-led organizations that attempt to meet the needs of all of our students on campus. So the various interests that a student may have. If you were a family that had the opportunity to attend admitted student weekend, you would have had the opportunity to meet some of the student leaders who have organized a registered student organization and see some of the things that they're about. In addition to that, obviously our Greek life is present. While we acknowledge that Morehouse in and of itself is a fraternity, we also have all of the Greek lettered organizations here on campus, inclusive of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, Kappa Kappa Psi, Phi Mu Alpha, Persian Rifles, and Groove Phi Groove. And I hope I'm not missing one. I think I got everybody. But in the event that anyone is on the call and I missed an organization that you're a part of that belongs here at the college, or is here at the college, blame it on the two brain cells that I unfortunately have at this time today. But that's a lot of what happens in student life. Moving into counseling services. So particularly, post-pandemic, we are seeing that a lot of our students are in need of counseling services. And we have a great team over there that led by Dr. Stephen Allwood, who is instrumental not only in seeing students individually, but also supporting groups and initiatives that are geared towards helping students in their development of coping strategies. And so if we can teach students how to manage their emotions and deal with, depression in a proactive way, that is the goal here. For our parents on the call, we know and understand that one of the critical things that everyone should be concerned about is, what are you going to do after graduation? And so our career services and development office is led by Mr. Douglas Cooper. And that office does exactly what the name suggests. They are here to get our students ready for jobs, graduate study, internships. So they are essentially a warehouse of opportunity as our students look to prepare for their careers. But they also serve as a resource in supporting student development in that preparation. So support in resume writing and the development of interview skills and these types of things. Career development hosts the various career fairs that happen on campus, where companies and organizations come to our campus to recruit our students. And we are happy to report that our 2020 class of 2023 placement rate right now stands at 83%. So 83% of the students who walked across the stage in 2023 left with at least one job or graduate school offer. And they continue to work with those individuals past their graduation date. So they work with alums as well. Moving into recreation, intramural athletics, and fitness, directed by Alexander Terry, knowing that we address student development in a holistic way. And so as you develop your mind, it's important that you keep and maintain your body. And so Alexander Terry, he directs our recreation center, as well as the intramural sports that happen on campus. We are just wrapping up intramural basketball, which was, I think, an 8-week basketball tournament that was very exciting. But also the other wellness initiatives that happen on our campus operates under Mr. Alexander. And so the Bonner Office of Community Service is directed by Dr. Wilbur Monty Whitney. And so for those, there are a number of service learning opportunities like the Bonner Scholars Program, like the Adams Scholars Program. And so for students who are interested in supporting service initiatives, they would find those opportunities in this office. If we go back to the mission of the college, is to to develop men with disciplined minds who lead lives of leadership and service. this is where they are able to leave their mark in that service space. And his office tracks 7 service initiatives being, I'm sorry, 6 service initiatives being community food insecurity, education initiatives, environmental sustainability, civic engagement, social justice, and health initiatives. Now you move into Michael Southern as the Assistant Dean of Student Conduct, Advocacy, and Accountability. When I was in school, you didn't want to see the Dean of Student Conduct because if you had to see them, you were in trouble. But that's not the only thing that Dean Southern handles. He is here, yes, to hold people accountability when they may have lost their way relative to the Student Code of Conduct, but also to serve as an advocate for students when they may find themselves in trouble. And so even with that in mind, what we see data-wise is that we have about a 98, 99% rate of compliance with the Student Code of Conduct. And so thankfully, Dean Southern is very busy doing a lot of the teaching and development in support of our students who just need a little help finding their way. Moving into the areas that really kind of serve the back office of student services, but these are really kind of the workhorses of our area. Dean Lovely Durham, who calls herself the Dean of Everything, but she does a lot of our data collection and special projects. So one of the things that she has recently done is she was responsible for rolling out our student satisfaction survey, which we are now actively utilizing to improve the services that not only student services provides, but the entire campus provides. And so she is spearheading that, but she is the one who typically holds all of us accountable to making sure that we are keeping true to the promises that we make in supporting your students. And lastly, Dr. Michael Turner, who serves as Associate Dean of Students and Ombudsperson. Dr. Turner does so much more than these 4 bullet points that are listed here on this slide. Turner truly is a tremendous advocate for all our students. He also serves as a residence house director for Graves Hall. But Dr. Turner supports a number of initiatives that ensure our students are getting everything that they need to be successful. When we have students who may be experiencing food insecurity, Dr. Turner helps with that. Dr. Turner manages a fund known as the Student Emergency Fund. So in the event that a student comes across an unexpected expense that may prevent them from going to class or prevent them from really being able to focus on their academics, Dr. Turner supports the management of that fund, which is money that goes directly into the hands of students when it's necessary. So all of those things and so much more is really spearheaded by Dr. Turner. So what does that all mean? So I started by saying that student services is in alignment with the college mission in supporting the transition of taking you from who you are to become, everything outside of the classroom. And so all of these areas are pouring into you as you develop as a student, as you develop as a man, right? So we are, for all intents and purposes, a circle of support really providing those services in support of your growth. Now, I only shared a handful of faces, but the team is so much larger even than what's represented here on this picture. Student services, as one of the most student-facing divisions on our campus, really is an amazing, cohesive team whose primary goal is to find ways to ensure that you make it across that finish line and that you're ready to live the life that you want to live. We want to make sure that you are leaving here ready to live a choice-filled life that you are greatly prepared for. And this is the team that's responsible for doing it, or at least a part of it. And so I will conclude there. And if there are any questions, I'll try to do my best to answer. I hope I did okay, Mr. Gunn.
Man, what? So first off, amazing, amazing, amazing. Student service is such a big area, right? I mean, it's such a big area for most institutions, most colleges. And, you pretty much, the average folks that normally work from the 9 to 5, you all are pretty much the night crew, right? The 5 to 9 and everything in between, even during the days and the midnight hours, they say. So, it's amazing the presentation you gave, and to put faces with these different various departments is critical. And of course, we got a very amazing group of participants tonight, 153 on the call right now. And so some of the questions that are coming in that I'm seeing that talk about student services is one that says, can you talk about the type of substance use support or addiction services, right? So from that counseling angle for students to some of those other things, what are some of the ways in which, we want to find preventative measures, or if there's some disorders that we might be coming into that we're trying to also prevent on our college campus?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you hit the nail right on the head. All of those types of services would run through our counseling services office. And so one of the things that the office does a great job is once a student identifies as needing support in these areas, they are able now to put a plan into action to support those needs, right? And so whether it's serving them in-house or being able to refer them out to local resources that can address their issue, they obviously advocate for that and support those initiatives. But Dr. Allwood, Ms. Tina Thompson, and Dr. Alex Proctor do a great job of supporting our students in that way. In addition to that, you talked specifically about substance abuse or substance use. And so I mentioned that counseling services supports a lot of group meetings. And so I know that there was a weekly, this academic year, there was a weekly substance abuse meeting that really attempted to support students who are fighting through that.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of Morehouse's culture, right? Is that closed mouth doesn't get fed. So it's important that you tell us and inform us, right? And I know that Dr. Brock, a lot of the folks that come into your building and into your room, there'll be different levels of escalation, let alone conversations,
Sure.
where it's just important to disclose and to be honest. And I think you all do an amazing job addressing some of the concerns that's seen or unseen, right? So this is an amazing space to be in where you feel that sense of support.
Right.
This
And
kind of
actually, just really quick to add to that, the importance of disclosing what's going on is critical in allowing counseling services to address the matter proactively instead of reactively, right?
yeah,
Reactively, now we're kind of, like chasing the issue, right? And so that's why it's really, really important that if we're coming in with a known issue,
yeah,
that that we talk to counseling services and get that resolved, or come in with a plan to support that student.
yeah. No, absolutely. Which student service related as well. Question number two. What mental health services do you provide for students? This is the last class coming out of the pandemic, right?
Yeah,
So, are you noticing some things? Like what are y'all doing over there? And it's kind of
yeah.
like a follow-up to your question.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So and I don't think this is a Morehouse thing, right? I think this is an education thing, specifically like a higher education thing. We don't know what the effect of COVID is going to be. We won't know until probably like 5, 10, 15 years from now, right? We're just kind of in the moment figuring it out, right? As an industry, right? And if we're also being completely 100% honest, ain't none of us all right? All of us, right? We all went through it together, and we not okay as a collective, right? The degree to which we show how not all right we are depends on um our ability, the tools in our toolbox that we have been able to amass to help cope with that, right? But we are seeing students come in with more or a higher rate of anxiety and depression issues, um, uh, mostly in that space. One of the things that I'm personally focused on and trying to figure out is our students who are here now, our students who are coming in these next couple of years, missed a critical part of their social development. And what I'm seeing is that students are having a little bit of a difficulty in this idea of making friends, right? And so a little different from my experience here as a student, your experience here as a student, Mr. Gum, and where I think that we kind of very much so organically were able to connect with the community. Now that we're kind of coming out of COVID, we're trying to figure out what's the best way to build and develop community relative to all the communities, right? So social activities is one way for people to kind of come out and connect. But if your student is not one who wants to be around crowds, or who, they want to be around, um, uh, uh, around loud music or like whatever it may be, that's not an activity that we can use for them to try to connect. So one of the things that I've tasked our student life folks with is figuring out a way to reach into all of the corners of the college, to find those students, to determine how we can best get them connected to their tribe. Um, but those are probably the two things that I'm seeing. And again, it's not just a Morehouse issue, um, but we are working towards figuring that out. I'll be the first to admit to say that we don't have it figured out, but we are trying to address what we're seeing.
I love the transparency, Brock,
Yeah.
because that's so real. That's so real for us. I think part of that goes into what we saw as new students were getting accepted, right? That there was a grade slip for some, maybe that year of COVID. And so this question about what tutoring services are available and ways in which there could be some support managing coursework. And if not, which department do they go to, right?
Sure.
What is the organicness, if you will, at Morehouse that allows for sort of the support that we talk about all the time?
Yeah. And so you want a real transparent moment? You got it. So proud member of the Morehouse College class of 99. But as I was sharing with Mr. Gum earlier, I am a member of the class of 99 spiritually. I'm actually a member of the class of 2000 physically, right? Everybody not gonna get it the first time, but when you get it, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, right? So when I came in my first year as a strong high school student athlete, who considered themselves to be ready for college for sure, went through, the orientation experience, had a great time. They spent during that time, our orientations were like 3 weeks long. And they spent 3 weeks telling me and everyone else in my class that you all are the saviors of the community and you're amazing. And that's why you're here. You're here to sharpen your tools and get out into the world and go be great. And then you get that first paper back and got an F on it. You ain't never seen it before. You don't know how to react, right? Guilty. So I had a very hard time asking for help because they had just spent 3 weeks telling me that I was amazing. And if I'm amazing, then why I need help? Because I'm a Black man and we don't need help, right? I'm here and I'm gonna say it during orientation again. No one on this campus gets through this process without asking for help. So I appreciate the question. I'm in my heart of hearts. I hope it came from a student, but I know it came from a parent. But but so I appreciate the sentiment of the question, right? Because everyone is going to need help, from the valedictorian to the to the kid that's just going to squeak by and walk across that stage. Everyone is going to need some degree of help. Now, student services actually doesn't support directly academic support initiatives like tutoring and those types of things, right? But one of the things that we do is we operate a weekly call called the Care Management Team. And we work with academic affairs to support the identification of students who may be experiencing issues, whether it be kind of issues or mental health issues, or they have some sort of injury or they need academic support, right? And so we come together as a team with the various areas on campus to talk about a student and what specific students may need. Now, specifically for academic support, as the Frederick Douglass Center for Academic Success, I believe it's called, is the full name. But Ms. Keisha Mathis is over there supporting that team. And they are largely responsible for connecting our students with academic resources that they may need. They also have academic coaches in that space, that if students are needing support in identifying different in the development of different skills, like study skills or time management skills, right? You know, and we saw earlier, 36% of the time they spend sleeping, right? So how do they better kind of manage how they're utilizing their time? All of those initiatives happen in that space. An additional resource is going to be the student's academic advisor. And I'm pretty sure that we've probably already had a Tiger Talk talking through advisement. But your advisor, in my opinion, could be someone that's on the first line of defense when there is an issue. And the analogy that I use all the time when I'm having these kind of conversations with students is, if you were drowning, are you going to yell for help when your head is above water or underwater? Right. And so there are initiatives in place that you have to proactively seek in order to get that help that you might need. I hope that answers the question. I did a lot of talking, so I hope I answered.
No, no, no. I mean, man, you nailed it. You nailed it. The only thing I would add is that there's student to student peer um supponents that you need to kind of tap into, right? So I know you're a big advocate of that as it relates to if you meet somebody in your freshman hall or you're in that classroom and you can just catch, that guy and he's getting it right. He's getting the answers in class. You tap that person, man, and say, hey, man, I'm having some difficulty. Can we just have a conversation, right? But other than that, I mean, Morehouse has an amazing to me, it's amazing organism of support, whether you're student, staff, faculty, or whether you're peer-to-peer, it's amazing, man. And that actually gets us into this next question. Brock, and you're doing an excellent job. Does Morehouse offer summer programs that help freshmen transition to college? So what does it look like in terms of some of those old programs? I don't know, PSP, maybe it was called. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What's that? What is that?
So I'm a little far removed from understanding the summer programs that are offered. I do believe that there is a pre-summer freshman program
Yeah,
available.
we call it the Morehouse Academic Accelerated Program, MAP
Okay.
program under
MAP.
Professor
Okay, I have heard
Davis.
of MAP.
Yep, yep,
So
yep.
MAP is, you could probably talk about this more, but MAP is is it virtual?
Yes, this semester it is. Yep,
Okay.
yep,
Yeah, so
yep.
it's the I'm gonna mess it up.
No, 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 you're good. No. So you know what? When we talk about MAP, right? We're talking about the summer program that allows for you to come in to navigate a space of learning Morehouse before actually coming into Morehouse. It's just fully amazing. With MAP, you actually get a chance to earn credit hours before coming into Morehouse. You can earn up to 9 credit hours, which is phenomenal. With that too, there is a cost reduction to that, which is great. And so our students get a chance to do that. They also get the opportunity through MAP to learn from English, taking on an English course or taking on the math course that's required. They get a chance to build that sense of camaraderie as well, so they know who their cohort is going into it. And so that program is under the direction of Professor Ilya Davis, who's amazing. Brock knows Professor Davis. They actually work hand in hand in times on the student service side, as Professor Davis is over first year experience at the college. But with that, he oversees that summer program. And so when we found that students that go through the MAP program end up actually doing quite well, just like in our days, Brock, with PSP, the pre-freshman summer program. That's pretty much what it is. It's
Yeah.
a chance for you to advance. It's a chance for you to align yourself. It's an amazing program where you get a chance. And all of our admitted students, you will be getting communication about the MAP program, the sessions and how it starts. We do keep in mind the idea of graduation. So whether or not you are graduating and you're from New York and you graduate mid-June, or if you're a little bit after, they have that in mind, right? They had that in mind. So the program definitely kicks off, it starts, and it's an amazing sort of bridge before coming into Morehouse College. And so we offer that opportunity as well. I think some of the summer programs that we do allow us to align well to some of the things that we want to see students do. And so all the things that, Dr. Mayers talked about earlier as it relates to sort of the retention and things of that nature, we know that MAP plays into it. And there's a sort of a cost that is not as strong as your first year through your 4 years. So why not take advantage of the opportunity? So I hope that does help. But reach out to Professor Ilya Davis on that. Go
So,
ahead,
and
Russ.
actually, I think that somebody put a link in the chat as well regarding the
Perfect.
program. But the last thing I'll say is that the classes that from my understanding, the classes that are offered in MAP are not just kind of haphazard, right? What we know is that students who graduate on time typically do so because they've passed their first math and English class the first time, right? And so MAP is an opportunity to provide that space for a student as they transition in. That first year transition is difficult, especially the autonomy of just kind of being on your own and if I'm being honest, Atlanta is very distracting. And so trying to manage what those distractions or how you interact with those distractions, because you should, right? You came to college to have that type of experience. So you should take advantage of all the things that Morehouse and the Atlanta University Center and the city has to offer, but not to the detriment of your academics, right? So, and figuring out that balance doesn't always happen in the first 10 months that you're here, right? And so getting that head start um, in the MAP program is a great idea.
Absolutely, absolutely. And these questions are coming in strong. So you're doing a great job. So in terms of departments, you mentioned a little bit about this, but what department helps with making sure students receive academic accommodations, right? So I, came in high school, I used to, find myself needing some accommodations. How
Mhm.
does that translate over into Morehouse, right?
Right. So Dr. Travis Sadler is a director for accessibility services. So if you have an IEP, that's your contact. What will so um, the accommodations process is a little different on the higher ed level than it is in primary and secondary school. And so the interaction with accessibility um, services and the student is critical. So if we have a parent who has sent over that accommodations paperwork, they will acknowledge that they've received it, but they have to have communication directly with the student. And so that sometimes is kind of the critical piece that ends up being missing when a student says, well, hey, or typically a parent comes in and says, hey, I sent the office all of the paperwork, but the student never followed up. And so it's critical that that paperwork gets over to Dr. Sadler's office and that there is student follow-up on the other side. But that's who manages that. Yeah, but
Uh,
and then it also goes for if there are any physical accommodations that happen, even temporary physical accommodations that are necessary. Say a student got into a car accident and they need um, a parking space or something like that. All of that is managed by accessibility services under the direction of Dr. Sadler.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And that's a good segue into sort of like campus life. It's not a generic question, but I'm seeing a lot that's kind of dealing with like, what is the campus like? Do I find myself being amongst where I gotta take a shuttle back and forth or take a bus to get to where I need to go in terms of classes? If I never saw Morehouse's campus, right? What does that look like from the student side? And then also, can you talk a little bit about cross registration?
Okay. Even though cross-registration is an academic thing, but I'm gonna talk about it because you asked, right? No. I've always said that as a Morehouse student, it's already inherently a very unique experience, right? But our students will go home after the first year and find a lot of commonalities that they can share with their other friends who went to college or went to an HBCU, right? Like, oh, this was my experience. We had Fried Chicken Wednesday, or there was homecoming, or whatever the case may be. They're gonna find a lot of commonalities. But another layer of just kind of specialness, if you'll allow me to make up a word, would be the fact that we are adjoined to Clark Atlanta University Spelman College, and I'm going to include Morris Brown because they were here when I was here. And they got their accreditation back, so I'm including Morris Brown. And that kind of makes the experience that much more special, because while we are four separate institutions, that share the same 2 miles of land ish, right? And I was asking Gum, it's about like a 2 mile radius?
Yeah, yeah, if that,
Right.
if that might be
Yeah.
1.1 or
So,
something.
right. So Morehouse is a very small campus, right? Spelman College is a very small campus. Both are Spelman is a little bit more enclosed. Morehouse is kind of semi-enclosed. Clark Atlanta is a little bit more open and urban. And the same for Morris Brown. But you can get to each of the campuses with a very short walk, right? One of the great things about that is that you have the opportunity to experience the social atmosphere not only at your home campus, which will be Morehouse, but also at Spelman and Clark Atlanta and Morris Brown. So the various things that happen in the Atlanta University Center are open for you to experience, which is not gonna happen anywhere else, right? So the nuanced cultures that are present at the other institutions, you get to experience that as well. I think that's a really, really kind of cool wrinkle because of just the physical placement of the college. And so some of the things that happen at the college, and so Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, and Spelman each have what are known as market days, where they have vendors to come out, and it's a large social gathering where people come out, typically DJs, and so that's a part of that 17-18% leisure time, that we talked about earlier. And so Morehouse is market day is called Hump Wednesday, which is our last hump of the year is actually tomorrow. So I'm sure that'll be a fairly well-attended hub. Then Clark Atlanta has a Market Thursday on their promenade, and Spelman has Market Friday on their campus. For those who were here during Admitted Student Weekend, I think you may have had an opportunity to experience Market Friday at Spelman. And so there are always going to be little things like that just kind of popping up and happening on campus. So for example, last night, members from Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, they had their new membership presentation show. So that was the thing that happened on campus. So there's always things that kind of pop up on campus. In addition to what I've said about things that happen on campus, obviously we're in the city of Atlanta, and it's a cosmopolitan, metropolitan city, right? And so a lot of our students will use public transportation to get around. That's a lie. They're using Uber. They're using Uber to get around the city, but shuttle services are available to take students to the two public transportation stops that are near the campus, as well as the library. And I think that will also include the Walmart on Martin Luther King Drive when it reopens.
Exactly.
The question, but
yeah, no. And that's exactly like the focus there.
cross
Mhm. Yeah,
cross registration. So that so another level of special nuance is you may have the opportunity to, if you choose, take a class at one of the other institutions, right? And so probably one of the best classes that I took during my time here was Images of Women in the Media at Spelman. And super eye-opening course. I was the only male in the class. And it was an opportunity to kind of hear and learn from perspectives that I'd probably never considered, previously. And so those opportunities are there for you to, kind of take classes at the other campuses, which I strongly encourage.
Absolutely. Great question. And that's something, as you talk about cross registration, you talk about that experience, right? That's group dynamic, right? That's opportunities to learn and to be a part of one, but you're a part of multiple, right? And
Right.
that's always an amazing experience. Yeah, like you should shared experience, right?
Yeah.
Brock and I had Spelman sisters, right? Like that's something that is very unique to a Morehouse and Spelman. And so one of the things that kind of gets to that a little bit is this idea that those students 16 years of age hitting the campus for the first time, are there any groups they should consider joining, or is there an opportunity to develop a program for them? So can you talk, and I got a question similar to this, can you talk about the idea of creating your own program or creating or being associated with an organization? What's that process if we don't have boxing right now, right? Hypothetically, we don't have boxing right now, but I was a boxer in high school. How do I bring boxing to Morehouse?
So we have boxing, right? So actually I'll probably leave the office and they'll be out on the steps sparring.
Gotcha.
It literally is that simple. It literally is a matter of I've looked at all 70 of the existing organizations. This doesn't exist, right? And you would attempt to find other people who are interested in that. And you would go through the process of building it. It really is an opportunity to take on a student leadership position. Do I recommend you attempting to start an organization in your first year? Absolutely not. Right. I think it's probably a good idea to figure out the lay of the land before you kind of start building things in that way. But I'll give you an example of someone who has actually done that pretty successfully. I recall about 2 years ago, a student emailed me pretty much every day over the summer asking how they could start an ultimate Frisbee organization. And they just participated in a tournament, making them the first HBCU to participate in an ultimate Frisbee tournament. And so if you want to start an ultimate Frisbee group, no need, it already exists here. But if you have other ideas, it's literally a matter of you just building it. Dean Chapman would be responsible for helping you to walk through that.
Absolutely. I remember the student that came in and he brought fencing to Morehouse, right? And he now is a senior. So it's just really astonishing what you can
Or
potentially,
polo,
or polo, right, right,
right?
right.
And crazy, I don't know if you heard this yet. The polo team just got nominated for an Emmy.
What? Yo, see. Yeah.
I literally just had this conversation
Yo,
yesterday with Tristan Williams.
that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, just got nominated. The first
That's
HBCU polo
crazy.
team just
Yeah.
nominated for an Emmy.
Yeah, shout out to Jakari, my man Jakari, who is education major and president of the polo team. So shout out to him. That's phenomenal. That's crazy. That's crazy. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's nuance. Wouldn't y'all like to get an Emmy for doing something that you love? But you brought it to Morehouse, and that name and that brand of Morehouse has got you where you would need to be. That's
Just
awesome.
build it. Just like the simple answer to the question is just build it.
Just build it. And you could, that's the beauty of coming, right? If you have something that you want to bring, by all means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, just one more thing, real quick.
Oh yeah.
And for those individuals that may say, you know what, I would love to build something, but I don't really know how. Like, I need to kind of develop some skills to really support that. We have two programs that really kind of support that. One being the Maurice Washington Emerging Leadership Program, and the LEAD program. Both are certifications that will teach students various leadership skills and prepare them to assume leadership roles, not only on campus, but beyond. Right. And so, in fact, just being a part of Student Government Association, leading a registered student organization, or participating in Greek life, you have to go through one of the two programs. So, so the infrastructure is there to help students prepare for those leadership opportunities.
Absolutely. And that's a preparation. Preparation. That's all I got to say. Just preparation. Brock, you talked about that concept of being well balanced, right? And those five wells, as you and I are very familiar with. As you think about that, and you think about the students coming in, a lot of students are kind of asking, or families might be asking questions like, "Why Morehouse for you?" If you could just kind of give your answer just one more time of like why you chose Morehouse.
So I went to a fairly I appreciate that question. I went to a fairly diverse high school, coming from New York. Like I said before, I'm a first generation American. I'm the first person in my family to be born in the country. I'm a first generation college student, first person in my family to go to college. But education was stressed heavily in my house. But when I looked to my parents to kind of say, "Hey, can you help me make this decision?" They couldn't, because number one, they didn't go through it themselves, and number two, they didn't have the frame of reference of how higher ed worked in this country, right? And so I kind of stumbled through it as best I could, and I went to a college fair and got tapped on the shoulder by a Morehouse admissions recruiter who said, "Hey, you ever heard of Morehouse?" And I was like, "No." And we probably had a 15-minute conversation that had me going home and, telling my mother I'm going to Morehouse, and my mother had never even heard of Morehouse. Um, and so it was something that he said in that time. It was 100 years ago, so I don't remember exactly what it was. But when he talked about the legacy, when he talked about the brotherhood, when he talked about this idea of being in a space that allowed you to be Black, be a Black man without the noise of having to justify your presence or your existence in a space. That is really what drew me to Morehouse. This idea that I could be somewhere with not necessarily like-minded, because our group is very incredibly diverse, but like ambitioned um people who happen to also kind of look like me was incredible. Um, and so that's really what the difference maker was for me. And I applied to three PWIs and three HBCUs. The last school I heard from was Morehouse. And when my parents were pressing me, like, "We haven't heard from Morehouse yet, so you need to make a decision," I said, "No, no." They got to tell me no, or or I'm going, right. So I got to hear from them before I can make any decision. But that's pretty much why. And honestly speaking, um, after after marrying the person that I married, Morehouse was the best decision I've ever made, hands down.
Right. I feel it. I was going to say which order does it come into, but you did it right.
It's
After
second. It's second.
you're
It's
saying,
second.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yes.
and here's the thing: I met the best man at my wedding. I met in Graves Hall, right? Um, my daughter's godfather, I met in Shivers Hall, eating. My daughter calls the man I went to school with uncle. She
That's
calls the women that I went to spelling with auntie.
right,
Right?
right.
It's experience like this, right? That's you know, for me that was the draw. Um, it didn't hurt that the Freaknik was happening in Atlanta during that time. In full transparency.
Right. No, it doesn't hurt at all. Now we didn't see you in any of those videos, right?
Nope. Safe.
Clean. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, man. And it's as we think about experiences, it's one of common experience, a common question is it common for students to get internships during the summer or during the school year, right? And then what's that app, right? What's that app that you all have that students are able to um tap into? If you could talk a little bit about that too.
So I'm going to assume you're talking about servant leader app.
Yes.
Servant leader app. Okay, yeah. So I'll talk about internships first. So yes, in an effort to prepare you for what life after college looks like, be more specific, what life after Morehouse College looks like. Um, it is critical that you have some sort of experience learning opportunity, right? And so internship partially serves in that space. Now, it's typically fairly difficult for first year students to secure an internship, but not impossible, right? Closed mouth don't get fed. So what I have found is that the individuals who actively engage with career services, like they're in the office, they're interacting with the staff, they're asking about different opportunities, they're showing up for all of the career fairs, or if a company is on campus, they're going to those meetings. Those are the people who are getting the internship opportunities, not only in the first year, but beyond. And that's critical in your learning and your development. And so it is possible, but as a first year student, it doesn't happen um, as often as we would want it to happen, right? But if you don't have an internship after your first year, um, don't think that you are behind the eight ball. But everyone should be finding something to do, at least during the summertime, what I call the academic off season, that is supporting their either academic or pre-professional um, development, right? And so whether that's figuring out a way to shadow a professional in your hometown, whatever it is, you need to figure out a way to be productive during the summertime, whether summer school classes, whatever it is, you need to find to do something during the summertime. So that's one. So the Servant Leader app is an initiative that Dean Chapman really kind of has pressed, and a lot of service opportunities, and sometimes professional opportunities are identified on the service leader app. And so as a student, you can kind of go into the app, see what opportunities that are available, and then sign up. And so pretty straightforward, and a great tool for those who are interested in serving the community for whatever reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a good thing. You might know a little bit about this. First year students accepting an honors program, when will their residence be provided, and what is the name of the residence that they'll typically reside in? And I say typically because, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know a lot about the honors program. It is my understanding that housing assignments will begin for first year students, will begin on May 13th. That will only occur if admitted students have completed their placement exams as well as have their medical paperwork submitted and cleared. So let me say something there. So submitted doesn't mean that you've completed the activity, right? Your paperwork has to be submitted on the, are we using point and click? Submitted to or is it Medicat? It's point and click.
Point and click.
Point and click. Submitted to point and click. And then the Morehouse School of Medicine, who operates our student health services, will review that paperwork to make sure that it is complete. You will then get a confirmation from the School of Medicine to say that you are medically cleared. At that point, housing will have the list of all of the students who have completed their placement exams and who are medically cleared, and housing placement will start for those students. That's honors program or not. Typically, students who are in the honors program will reside in the best residence house on campus, Graves Hall.
I mean, I'm just gonna leave it there. I wouldn't say the
Special
best.
students.
Yeah. The
Special
best.
students
And I
will.
knew you were gonna. I knew you. That's why I smiled at you, because I knew it had to be one of them. But there's only the founder of Morehouse. William Jefferson Whitehall. 198 Deuce. I'll leave that alone. Would be no Morehouse without the name Morehouse, right? And there would be no founder without Morehouse College without the founder. So, we'll leave that alone. Just facts, drop the mic, Mike.
It's just something about living at the highest point of the city of Atlanta.
Oh, yeah, I didn't picture that. That's only ground elevation. I guess it's nice to say. No, there's always amazing rivalry, and each housing you have is applicable to some amazing experiences and alumni that have come out of those houses. And so Brock and I know some history behind the ones we live in and the ones that you futuristically will live in. So hopefully you do pick the best, which is Whitehall, and you find yourself not wanting to be dead anywhere in Graves. But you might find yourself being in Graves, which is phenomenal. So good. We're having so much fun, and I know as we kind of get ready to soon wrap up, we're going to try to get to all your amazing questions. And you all have tons of questions, so thank you for staying on and getting these answered. Brock, I think we're going to take maybe about 5 more that I saw that we want to kind of bring into surface here as we get ready to conclude. We'll leave with some closing statements and then some pieces that we want to make sure everybody's aware of as we close out this session. So the next 5 is simply one, and this is a good question. Is there a dry residence hall for students wanting to have a sober college experience? So when you start looking at our campus, is it a dry campus? Is it not? When it's not, when is that typically, and then what is our practice around staying sober and the sort of aspects of Morehouse as it defines the ideal sense of being a Morehouse man, right? Or I should say expectations, right?
Very good question. And so first and foremost, it is the expectation that men of Morehouse follow the law. And I think that if I'm pretty sure that the law hasn't changed, and the legal drinking age in the country is 21. And so unless you're a non-traditional student, you are not of the legal drinking age, and the expectation is that you follow that law. I'm also a realist, right? So Morehouse by rule is a dry campus. And so alcohol consumption on our campus is not permitted. And it's something I introduced you all to Dean Michael Southern during my presentation. And so students who are found with alcohol and who are intoxicated, they will be introduced to the student conduct side of Michael Southern. and be held accountable in that space. Having said that, is alcohol being consumed on the Morehouse College campus and every college campus in the country? I'm sure. And so there's no dry space, but I also don't see a significant amount of abuse in students kind of in what you think some other college experiences are like, where people are running through the halls and everyone is drunk on a weekend. These are not the things that we typically see on our campus. Does consumption happen? Yes. Is it a wild fraternity party? That hasn't been my experience in leadership.
Got you. Good, good, good. And yeah, we try to encourage some good practices. How do we join the student groups is a question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So during the first month or so of the academic year, we have a registered student organization fair similar to the one that we hosted during Admitted Students Weekend. It'll be in coordination with Hump Wednesday, and it's an opportunity for you to meet all of the student organization leaders that are on our campus, and in that space, you'll be encouraged to to join any various number of groups. I would be mindful as a first year student. Remember, we talked about that whole kind of transition period. So be mindful of how involved you're getting early on. We do find students saying, I have so much to do. I'm so busy. And this is why I may experience some slippage in my academics. Hey man, listen, nobody told you to join 10 clubs and try to be the president in every one. Right?
Right.
Bad idea. It's a bad idea. So I would take your time and ease in. But see the organizations that you're in. You will be introduced to the organizations that you may be interested in at the beginning of the year, and then you would just tap in accordingly.
Exactly. Do you offer any seminars or coaching on time management, organization, or test taking tips?
Yes, so that happens in Frederick Douglass Academic Success Center. There are dedicated academic coaches. Mr. Curtis Clark is over there. What's Corey's last name? There are a number of academic coaches that are over there to support that type of development. And they do host workshops that teach those academic success things. I think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Gum, but as a part of the first year experience that Ilya Davis hosts every Tuesday, it's mandatory for all first year students. Kind of talk through a lot of those support structures on the academic side of the house. So don't feel like I kind of spoke through that quickly, because when you come here, you will be exposed to all of those support structures that are available to you.
Yeah, no. And you nailed it. It's still the same kind of like what freshman assembly was for us. It was a required class. And the idea is, and Professor Davis does it very well, to bring in speakers to engage with you about, where you are, because he talks a lot about homesickness and people not necessarily wanting to adapt to the changes. Morehouse can be a culture shock if you're coming all the way from California to the city of Atlanta, and then you're going to a place where you're now the only where you maybe been like 8% of the Black male population. Now you're like 96% of the Black male population. That could be very daunting for somebody who's not familiar with certain cultural representations, let alone different languages, right? I think we make the assumption that all Black men are the same, and we're not. And so there's definitely some variance there. And so that's an amazing opportunity at 11 o'clock on Tuesdays, where Professor Ilya Davis definitely hones in on those sort of expectations. Like, how do you walk to the MARTA station? How
Yeah.
should you walk to the MARTA station, right? Or those things that are important, right? So the last question for the evening before I let you close us out. The question is, how should we prepare for Morehouse as we enter the final weeks of our senior year? This is it. I'm in 12th grade. I probably got prom, or I had prom. This is, yeah, it's a good question. How should I prepare for Morehouse, right? What tidbits from your experience, from your leadership as the Dean of Student Services, Associate Dean of Student Services, what Associate VP of Student Services, excuse me. What are some of the ways in which, right, in your role and capacity, if you could even go back for yourself, what were the ways in which you would have properly prepared yourself so that one, you hit all your goals, and two, you could make this happen and still be the amazing Dr. Mayers that you are today? What advice would you have?
To really, I hope as a student, to ask that question. So really a question. Like I said before, I see the summer as your academic off season. In every other area, if there are athletes on the call, if you're a basketball player, when it's not basketball season, you're running, you're lifting weights, etc. If you're a football player, when it's not football season, you're running, you're lifting weights in the off season, right? Your academics should be no different. It's not a break. It's just off season. It may not be um, as structured, but in order to stay in academic shape, you should be working towards doing something academic. I encourage you to find ways to do that, whether that's joining the MAP program or finding something academic to do. The summer before my freshman year at the college, I participated in a program called Upper Bound Math Science, which was a college preparatory program. Um, uh, if you can't find a program or you choose not to participate in MAP, you need to be reading something, right? In preparation for what that English comp class is going to look like, right? You should find yourself reading good writing, right? So that you can utilize that experience to learn how to write well. If you read good writing, you will learn how to write good writing. Make sense?
No,
Yeah.
definitely makes sense.
But that's not to say that you shouldn't, like spend like these last couple weeks also enjoying, the time at home. And I encourage you to do that responsibly. Um, because life will change. There's a show called A Different World, and when you get to college, you will know and understand that college is not high school, and it is indeed a different world. And so you should spend some time enjoying and living, whatever that life was before you left. In these last couple of weeks, don't get senioritis. Um, finish strong always, um, and make good decisions, because I have heard about, not necessarily here at the college, but at other institutions, students who are accepted and ready to go to and to start their college career and make some bad decisions prior to that, and then they lose that opportunity. I don't think anybody on this call will experience that, but if we make good decisions, we can ensure that no one on this call will experience that. So, spend time with your family if that's possible. I know you're gonna probably want to prioritize your friends, but spend as much time with your family or the people who continue to sacrifice to make, who have made all the opportunities before Morehouse a thing for you, and those who are going to continue to fight to make Morehouse a thing for you moving forward. Spend time with them, and get ready for the ride of your life that will change the trajectory of your life.
Yo,
That I hope
no, that's it. That's it right there. And I think in many ways, congratulations, right? That was the only other thing, like, for making it, right? To your amazingness, man. You all has been a wonderful night. And Dr. Brock Mayers, it's not every day you get an associate VP that's willing to engage with the student population and to come off on a Thursday, Tuesday night evening and to have real conversation about the things that take place. So, Dr. Mayers, we thank you, for giving that time. We know you have family, we know you have other commitments, but
I'm hungry, Michael. You didn't buy me dinner.
Look, okay, so I gotta make that work. I figured we could just get a pizza on campus. Maybe, it's fried chicken Wednesday. That was today. So let's see what we can do. So I'll meet you in the caf. But I will say is congratulations. Yes, if you need support, any questions that you have, you can go right here. And thank you for bringing this up. And so any questions that you have, you can reach out to us. We're super excited because this is probably our 17th or 20th or something like that Tiger Talk session where we've been able to talk and engage and be able to be a resource for you to get your questions answered, to really be that in between, so that you can kind of be the bridge, if you will, Doc, in terms of the campus and the outside world. So for counselors that have come on here, parents, students, thank you so much for engaging with us. More to come. I always say to our students, please check your inbox, check your new Morehouse email, right? It's such and such blank first name, blank dot last name at Morehouse.edu. By all means, you should be checking that inbox. And of course, to stay in contact with us, you have our information. We have our website available. I put in the chat the ARC website. So utilize our Morehouse website to get information. As always, I always like to end with that. Brock, I'll let you close us out with a last comment, a Morehouse statement, and then I'll end with mine, and then we'll be free to go.
I don't know if I have a hip pocket Morehouse statement, but I'm just excited. I appreciate the opportunity, Director Gum and to the admissions team. I'm there 3 times a year that I super, like, I really enjoy. We're heading into one with commencement, homecoming, obviously, being the celebration of my birthday, because my birthday's around homecoming, and obviously orientation, just kind of seeing all of our new students come in with all of their dreams and aspirations on their chest, and ultimately getting to support them to work towards that is an amazing opportunity. So I don't even think that this is work, per se. But I'm excited to welcome you all to the campus in August, and to support your achievement.
Yeah. And like I always say, the tragedy lies not in reaching your goal, right? The tragedy lies in having no goals to reach for. So continue to aim high, exceed greatly. Know that these are the people you're going to be engaging with when you get to campus. When you have a Dr. Mayers who's going to be like, hey man, with some Air Force Ones on, saying, come kick it with me, right? Brock, you got them on now.
I wore Yeezys today.
You are Yeezys. I mean, come on, man. What associate VP do you know where he's? So I mean, this is our family, right? So engage with us, unite with us as we help you become the man that you're called to be. Welcome to Morehouse, and we're super excited about the things you've accomplished. Thank you so much.
Thank you.